Taurus, you will cry tears of joy. A new cycle begins and someone still thinks of you deeply. Taurus, have you been sensing it lately? That quiet shift within you. So gentle you almost missed it, yet persistent enough to stir something deep in your heart. Like the moment right before dawn, when everything feels hushed and sacred, you are standing at the threshold of something beautiful. A new cycle is beginning. Not loud, not chaotic, but tender, rooted, and unmistakably yours. Maybe you felt more emotional than usual. Maybe the things that used to comfort you no longer do. Or perhaps you've caught yourself reminiscing, wondering if someone somewhere still holds your name gently in their heart. You're not imagining it. This is not random. Something is returning to you. Something you quietly gave up on is whispering again. And it will bring tears, not of sorrow but of deep soul-level joy. Welcome to Zodiac Wisdom, dear one. I'm Sophia, psychologist, astrologer, and your guide through these sacred turning points. This channel is your sanctuary, especially for women over 40 who have carried the weight of families, dreams, and silent heartbreaks with grace. If you feel like this message is speaking directly to a part of you that rarely gets spoken to, then stay. Like, share, and subscribe if it feels right. Not out of habit, but because you deserve a space where your soul is seen and celebrated. In today's video, we're going to walk slowly, tenderly, through the signs that your life is shifting. And by the end, you'll not only understand what's unfolding, you'll feel it in your body, in your breath, in your bones. Please stay until the very end, because the most powerful truth I have to share with you is waiting there. And if any part of this resonates, I would love to hear from you. What moment, what feeling, what part of this message called your name? Leave a comment below, because in this space, your story matters. Gate 1, the quiet beginning of your new life cycle, Taurus. Taurus, you've always moved through life with a quiet kind of strength. You are the one others lean on, the steady hand in the storm, the grounded presence that makes people feel safe just by being near you. But lately, something has changed. Maybe the things that used to anchor you now feel heavy. Maybe you wake up with a strange tenderness in your chest, like something old is leaving, and something new, something softer, is waiting to take its place. This is not a breakdown. This is not weakness. This is the beginning of your sacred becoming. You see, Taurus, real transformation rarely looks dramatic at first. It begins in silence, in the way you pause mid-conversation because your heart no longer wants to agree just to keep the peace. In the way you stand in a room full of people and suddenly feel lonely, not because no one is around, but because you're outgrowing the version of yourself they still expect. This quiet beginning doesn't ask for attention. It only asks for your truth. You are not the same woman you were a year ago. You've been through things you never told anyone about. You've held your world together when no one was watching. You've cried in locked bathrooms, gathered your strength in morning silence, and kept showing up when you barely had anything left to give. That resilience? It didn't break you. It carved a new space inside you for something even more profound to bloom. And now that blooming is beginning. Maybe you've noticed it in small ways. You're more emotional in certain moments and don't try to hide it anymore. You want peace more than control. You crave solitude, not to escape, but to hear your own thoughts again. You're not chasing applause or proving your worth. You're coming back to the most sacred place, yourself. This isn't a time for rushing. It's a time for remembering. You are being asked to return to the version of yourself that existed before the world told you who to be. The version who trusted her body's wisdom, who believed her inner knowing, who felt beauty in stillness, not in performance. And yes, there may be tears. Not because something is ending, but because something deeply honest is beginning. You're no longer forcing doors to open. You're realizing that the ones meant for you open gently, without resistance. You're no longer clinging to what once made sense. You're realizing that it's okay to let things go simply because your heart no longer says yes. Taurus, your new cycle doesn't need a declaration. It doesn't need a plan. It only needs your permission. Let yourself rest without guilt. Let yourself say no without apology. Let yourself feel the joy in small things again. A soft morning, the warmth of tea, the song you've always loved that suddenly feels like a message. These moments aren't small. They're sacred. They are the building blocks of your new beginning. I once spoke with a Taurus woman who thought she had to have everything figured out before she made a change. She stayed in a life that looked good on paper but left her quietly aching inside. When she finally allowed herself to listen to that ache, Not fix it, not explain it, just listen. Everything shifted. She didn't change her life overnight, but little by little, she began living in alignment with her soul. And one day, without even realizing it, she looked around and saw, I'm happy. Not the loud, performative kind, the real kind, the kind that hums through your bones and makes you cry for no reason except that you finally feel free. Taurus, this is your moment. The world isn't asking you to reinvent yourself. It's asking you to return, to remember, to soften, to reclaim the quiet power that's always lived inside you. This new beginning isn't about achieving more. It's about being more of who you already are. So if you feel tired, let yourself rest. If you feel called to cry, let the tears come. They are not weakness. They are water for the seeds of your next chapter. If you feel a pull to spend time alone, to write again, to walk barefoot in the grass, or to revisit an old dream, follow it. These are not distractions. These are breadcrumbs on your path back to yourself. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are not late. You are blooming right on time. Gate 2: the liberation from old patterns. Taurus. Taurus, I know how much you've carried. You are the keeper of routines, the protector of peace, the one who holds everything together, even when it costs you pieces of yourself. But there comes a moment, a quiet, almost unspoken moment, when the very structures you built to survive begin to feel like walls. And now your soul is softly whispering, you don't have to do it this way anymore. That whisper? It's your liberation. You see, Taurus, your strength has always been your devotion. To people. To stability. To showing up and making sure everyone else is okay. But what happens when the devotion turns into depletion? When loyalty begins to feel like self-abandonment? That's not failure. That's the moment your soul invites you to grow. And that's where you are now. You might not have words for it yet, but you feel it. That quiet discomfort when you agree to something you no longer believe in. The fatigue that doesn't go away with sleep. The heaviness in your chest when you show up to a life that no longer reflects who you've become. It's not in your head. It's the old version of you gently breaking away. And even though you've outgrown those patterns, it's okay to grieve them. Because for Taurus, letting go isn't easy. You form bonds slowly, deeply. You commit with your whole heart. You don't walk away on impulse, you stay. Sometimes too long. Sometimes until your own joy becomes an afterthought. But my dear Taurus, you are allowed to outgrow what you once prayed for. You are allowed to leave rooms you've outgrown. You are allowed to choose your peace, even if it disrupts someone else's expectations. I once worked with a Taurus woman named Elaine. She ran a small home business, took care of her aging parents, and kept showing up for everyone. But deep down, she felt like she was living a life that no longer belonged to her. I feel like I'm disappearing, she told me once, barely above a whisper. It wasn't until she allowed herself to break one old habit, saying yes when she meant no, that the change began. At first, the guilt was overwhelming, but then came the peace, and then the clarity. Within a year, she had set boundaries in every area of her life. And she didn't lose love. She gained self-respect. And with that came a calm, radiant confidence that even she hadn't known was waiting inside her. That's what this moment is for you, Taurus. Not punishment. Not abandonment. Permission. Permission to say no to what no longer feels like truth. Permission to release responsibilities you were never meant to carry alone. Permission to let go of guilt that was never yours to hold. You are not selfish for choosing rest over performance. You are not difficult for saying no without explanation. You are not broken because the life you built no longer fits the shape of who you are becoming. This is not the unraveling. This is the refining. And as you begin to say yes to yourself more often, you'll notice how the right things start flowing in. People who respect your time, opportunities that align with your values, connections that feel like nourishment instead of negotiation. Because when you clear out what no longer honors your soul, the universe has room to send what does. You'll begin to feel lighter. Not because everything is perfect, but because you finally stopped betraying yourself in the name of peace. And the most beautiful part? The people who truly love you will still be there. And they'll love this new version of you even more, because she's real. She's grounded. She's glowing. So if there is something or someone you're afraid to let go of, ask yourself this. Am I holding this because I love it? Or because I'm afraid of who I'll be without it? And if the answer points you toward release, trust it. You're not walking away from your life, Taurus. You're walking toward the version of it that actually supports you. This is the liberation your soul has been waiting for. Not with fireworks, but with quiet courage. Not with rebellion, but with reverence. The kind of reverence that says, I matter too. My peace matters. My energy matters. My joy matters. And so, Taurus, begin again, not as someone else, but as someone free. Gate 3, the sacred return to yourself, Taurus. Taurus, there is a moment in a woman's life when the mirror becomes more than a reflection. It becomes a revelation. You look into your own eyes and realize that the woman staring back at you is not who the world shaped, but who your soul has quietly protected all along. That moment is now. You've given so much. Time, energy, patience, forgiveness. You've built homes for others, both physical and emotional. You've held the weight of expectations with grace. But something inside you is stirring, isn't it? A longing, a whisper, a question rising louder than ever. When do I come home to me? This isn't about selfishness. It's about truth. You see, Taurus, your sacred gift has always been devotion. But devotion without direction becomes depletion. And somewhere along the way, you started tending to everyone's garden but your own. You forgot that your needs weren't negotiable. You forgot that your dreams didn't expire. You forgot that the life you're worthy of isn't a reward for sacrifice. It's a birthright. Now, after all the years of being the strong one, the steady one, the one who made sure everyone else had what they needed, you are being asked to turn inward. Not to fix anything. Not to prove anything. But to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And I know it feels unfamiliar at first. Self-connection can be a quiet stranger after years of putting yourself last. You might even resist it. Feel guilty for taking up space. Hesitate before saying, no, this is what I want. But Taurus, let me tell you something you need to hear. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to stop performing peace and actually claim it. You are allowed to come back to yourself softly, steadily, shamelessly. I once worked with a Taurus client named Meredith, a former nurse turned wellness coach in her early 50s. For decades, she had poured into everyone. Patients, family, community. Until one day, she woke up and realized she didn't know what made her happy anymore. Her smile still worked, but it was tired. Her laughter still came, but it felt distant. Through gentle self-inquiry, art, and solitude, she began to reclaim small joys. Painting again, dancing barefoot in her garden, saying no without apology. And as she did, something remarkable happened. Her energy returned. Her voice deepened. Her presence became magnetic, not because she was trying, but because she was finally being. That's what's calling to you now, Taurus. A homecoming not made of bricks and schedules, but of breath and stillness. You're being invited to tend to your own heart, the way you've so beautifully tended to others. To ask yourself, what makes me feel alive? Not just useful. What nourishes me? Not just what keeps me productive. The answers won't arrive all at once. They'll come in waves. In quiet mornings when you pause instead of rushing. In walks where your thoughts soften. In tears that arrive without reason and leave you feeling somehow cleaner, truer, lighter. Let them come. This sacred return isn't a performance. It's not a glow-up. It's an unlayering. A remembering. It's the way your body feels when you wear clothes that fit your spirit. It's the peace of canceling a plan without guilt. It's the joy of sipping tea slowly, not as a task, but as a ceremony. And as you begin to live this way, not for the world but for yourself, you will notice your world shift. You'll attract people who don't need you to shrink. You'll find work that doesn't drain your soul. You'll feel love. Not just romantic love, but soul-aligned connection. That arrives without demand and stays without force. Because here's the truth, Taurus. When you finally come home to yourself, the world comes home to you. You become the center of your own life again, not by pushing but by allowing. Not by controlling but by trusting. And when you stand rooted in your own worth, you no longer fear being left behind. You know that anything meant for you cannot miss you. So if today your heart aches with something you can't name, if you feel on the edge of something beautiful but uncertain, know this: you are not lost. You are being led. The return to yourself is not a detour. It's the destination your soul has been pointing to all along. Taurus, come home. To your rhythm. To your softness. To your power. To your joy. To your peace. Because everything you've ever longed for isn't out there. It's here. Inside the woman who finally chose to remember herself. Conclusion: you are the home you've been searching for. Taurus, if you're still with me now, I want you to pause, not just to finish this video but to feel something deeper. Feel how your breath is softer. Feel how your shoulders have relaxed. Feel how, without even realizing it, a part of you has already begun to return. This wasn't just a message. It was a mirror. A quiet, sacred space where your soul could be seen again. And if your heart stirred even once while listening, then trust me, the shift you've been waiting for has already begun. You didn't need to fix yourself to step into this new chapter. You only needed to remember yourself. Not the version that others needed, not the role you were expected to play, but the woman you were before life told you to be: smaller, quieter, more agreeable, less. You see, Taurus, healing rarely looks like fireworks. It often looks like boundaries, like silence, like choosing peace over performance. It looks like waking up one day and realizing you're no longer begging life to love you back. You're choosing to love yourself deeply and without conditions. And that changes everything. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not too late. You are on time. Right now, in this moment, you are exactly where your soul needs you to be. You are more ready than you've ever been to receive what you once had to chase. Tenderness, truth, trust, and the kind of joy that doesn't need an audience to feel real. So Taurus, I'll ask you now, what part of today's message spoke to your heart the loudest? Was it the call to let go of what no longer fits? The quiet power of choosing yourself first? Or maybe the realization that your sacred gift was never gone? It was only waiting for you to come back? Share it in the comments. Not just for me, but for every woman here who is walking this same tender path, quietly wondering if she's alone. She's not. You're not. Here at Zodiac Wisdom, we're building more than a channel. We're building a sanctuary for women like you, for seekers, for lovers, for soft souls who've carried the weight of the world and are finally ready to carry themselves home. So if this message reminded you of your strength, if it softened something that's been hard for too long, please like this video, subscribe to our community, share it with someone whose light deserves to be remembered, and stay close. This journey is just beginning. If you are Taurus, or if you love someone who is, you'll want to stay with us, because what's coming next will reveal even more of the beauty that's been waiting inside you all along. The truth is, you were never meant to prove your worth. You were meant to live it. You are not just stepping into a new chapter, Taurus. You are stepping into a new way of being. With your roots deep, your heart open, and your light unapologetically shining. We'll be right here with you. Every step, every breakthrough, every quiet miracle. Because the path home doesn't have to be walked alone. I see you. I believe in you. And you are so incredibly loved.